Hey guys, G here from the Elemental Awakening Show. I'm super excited for my guest today, one of my very, very closest friends, Thais Gibson. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, Thais is going to tell a bunch of her story, but we met a few years ago. She sent an email. I was working with a website at the time, and she just reached out to everyone there. And I think I was the only one that actually got to my inbox or responded. And I was like, she wants like, I've been working on all this stuff with the mind and subconscious work, and I was doing some little get-togethers. I was like, oh, like I was curious. So she came in, and we hit it off right away. We just had this deep conversation the first day we met each other, and I couldn't really say her name at first, but reminded it, like I remembered it, and yeah, it's Thais, and it's going to be a super popular name in years to come. I'm going to bet on that. But we just made this friendship, and she's doing some amazing work. And over the years, we just kept in contact, and now we're launching something together called the Personal Development School, which she is the creator of, and I'm helping get it off the ground. So we're going to jump into that, talk all about that as well. So sit back, relax, stay tuned for an awesome episode with Thais Gibson from the Personal Development School. So let's just start with a bit of your story, because I think a lot of the people that watch your channel are they really resonate with the content, because a lot of it is very universal. A lot of people think that you're speaking exactly to them because you figured out some stuff about the way the mind works, but I know you just didn't figure it out by reading a book. So you want to give us a little bit about your story and how you sort of came to some of these conclusions about life and your journey?
Yeah, so this could be a really long story, so I'll try to sort of simplify it as much as possible. But my upbringing was tough. I had really loving parents who meant really well, and they were in a lot of chaos. So I experienced a lot of like chaos in the home, a lot of unresolved stuff, a lot of challenges, and a lot of wanting to figure out like why people behave the way that they do from a really young age to kind of make sense of my reality. And then as I got into high school, I was like, really wanting to get out of my home, really wanting to be as far away from home as possible and kind of heal. Went through a lot of stuff and was really focused on like getting a soccer scholarship. Like I'm gonna get a soccer scholarship and be free and get away from home and heal. And I had a really bad knee injury in my sophomore year of high school, and had to have knee surgery. Went through this whole process and got addicted to my painkillers. So through that became this whole like secondary layer of pain and suffering. And without going too far into it, I could definitely say that that was probably the hardest thing I ever went through. Like harder than any childhood trauma, harder than anything else, was just like how painful addiction and being an addict was itself. And I was like looking for answers. Like I do not want to feel like this forever. So I sort of originally thought I'll get out of my home and I'll go be far away and I'll get a chance to heal. And it really just got worse. And so it was this ongoing, like, daily battle and struggle for quite some time, which definitely opened me up to like a high level of empathy for other people and their struggles, I think. And I really was looking for answers. And one of the most powerful things is like after doing what I thought was everything, like inpatient rehab, outpatient rehab, like therapy, all kinds of stuff, and nothing was working.
So you're
I
trying really
really,
hard to
oh
get
my
better.
God, like trying so hard to get better. Journaling, like just you name it, I was trying to do anything. And what I learned is, I constantly felt like there was this battle inside of myself. Like I wanted to get better, and then I'd promise myself, okay, this is the last day, this is the last time, over and over again. And then, of course, break the promise and feel disappointed. And self loathing was like a really painful part of that. And like a lot of like, I can't count on myself, I can't trust myself. A lot of like, it really sort of tore up the relationship to myself, I would say. And um and it wasn't until I learned that your conscious mind cannot outwill or overpower your subconscious mind that it finally started to make sense. And it was like, oh my gosh. So the part of me that wants this goal of getting better, getting sober, being healthy, and then my subconscious has a different set of intentions, and that's why I keep losing.
Mm.
And so it was this huge breakthrough for me to recognize that your subconscious mind is playing such a foundational role in governing your behavior and your patterns and your emotions and how you show up. And unless you are trying to heal at that level, you're always going to hit a wall. So that I was in my really early 20s. And that was this point in time for me where it was like, oh my gosh, I almost became like addicted to personal development or like psychology and learning and growing because I felt like that was this, I had such a strong hunger to heal. And that's what brought me to all of these things. And there was so many days in my journey where I felt so alone and so like misunderstood. And I would always make this promise to myself, like if I get out of this, if I can find my way through this, if I ever like I literally had this point in my life where I was like, I'll just try to live as happy of a life as possible and I'll just die at like 45. Like I'll just die young. And almost like accepted that I was going to be an addict forever. And there was so much of that. And it was like, if I can somehow get out of this, I will do whatever I can to make sure nobody feels like this again and to bring like this awareness to other people because I think we all have, whether it's career problems or challenges, whether it's fears, phobias, OCD, like anything. The reason we get stuck in those patterns is because we're not, the vast majority of the time, addressing these patterns at the subconscious level and actually reprogramming those paradigms. And so we keep coming up against this wall and we keep being imprisoned by our limiting beliefs or our fears. And until we address them at the subconscious level, change is next to impossible. So I would say a big part of this mission of the personal development school is about bringing this awareness of the subconscious mind and the proper tools to repattern or reprogram things to, anybody who's looking to fix or change or break through any other area or limitation in their life.
Amazing. So I'm just really curious. Can you explain the process of when you started realizing, like, wow, this is actually working? Like, what were you feeling? Like, was it like the urge to do painkillers was gone? Was it you just started feeling happy on your own? Like, what did that transformation feel like from your experience?
Okay, so a really good question. So I would say the first so I learned about the subconscious mind and then I learned about it through like, books and awareness and knowledge and then I didn't recognize my own patterns right away. So I was like, okay, I have to reprogram my subconscious mind, but like what does that really mean? And I had to kind of introspect and figure out what that meant for me specifically. And for me, one of the first most painful patterns was the self-loathing. And I think that that comes a lot through people who are addicted and are trying to get better or want to get better. And it's like you're constantly losing that battle to yourself. And there's like a lot of self-criticism and beating yourself up for it and like what's wrong with me. And so it was funny because I remember um, sort of being aware of these things and having this process where I would be like, okay, I would come home from work at the time and I was still doing painkillers and all this stuff, but I was drinking a lot as well. And I couldn't like drink, like open a bottle of wine and not drink the whole thing. And then, the nice combination of those two things makes you feel terrible the next morning. And I was working at the time. So it was like, I was a highly functional addict the vast majority of the time, but, you know, in some ways and kind of destructive in other ways because of all this stuff. So, it's like flooding all these memories back to me,
Mhm.
right? So, there was this point for me where it became, I would be like, okay, I'm just gonna have a glass of wine and I'm gonna stop there and I'm not gonna like get high at all tonight. And I would tell myself these things. And then, of course, I would break that promise to myself half an hour later. And I couldn't like put an end. And I would notice that the more I beat myself up, the more I would want to escape my pain. And so it was actually like increasing the amount that I would put into my body and it was making
Okay.
things a lot more challenging. And so I realized like this is one of my programs. Like this is one of the things going on in me subconsciously. And I have to like release that first piece, like the guilt, the beating myself up, the self-criticism. And I recognize that, you know, the things that were so painful to me in my childhood, that like intense self-criticism and the beating up and the emotional and sometimes even physical violence was what I was replaying in the relationship to myself, and that these were the programs repeating themselves. So that was my first layer. And when I had that recognition, I was like, okay, no matter how hard this is, I know that this way is not working. So whatever I do, I'm going to try to just stop the self-judgment and I'm going to learn to be gentle to myself and treat myself like I would want somebody to treat me in this situation, with compassion, with kindness, with empathy, with like, hey, you're doing your best. This isn't easy. And I shifted that in the relationship to myself, and like the results were tremendous. Like that was the first shift where I didn't feel this like ongoing hunger and desire and like depth of fear to let go of my habits. And it was almost like It's funny to say this, but it's almost like the addictive nature in me started to let go of me instead of the other way around.
Mm.
And I had gone through many times and put myself through periods of withdrawals and gone through all the withdrawal symptoms and all the challenges. And sometimes because I was trying to get clean, and sometimes because I couldn't find any of what I needed. And that was always changing in the dynamic. But um, I did it this time. So the moment I had this realization, it wasn't the end, but it was probably 3 or 4 times before I like actually stopped. And so I put myself through withdrawals this first period of time, and I went a lot longer before I got high again. And the space sort of panned out, and it wasn't as like, it just felt really different. And it was sort of this like glimmer of hope, like, hey, this could actually work. And I'm just going to show up for myself in the way that I always needed somebody to show up for me in my childhood, or during challenging times or scary times in my home, or and it gave me probably enough hope to keep trying and exploring a new way of treating myself. And as I knew at the time, it was like through the repetition of doing this that I was going to reprogram these aspects. And so the transformation started off by, I would stay sober for longer, and I would still go back and have these slip ups, but I was doing this myself. I wasn't like in a rehab center this time or anything like that. And so the sobriety periods would last longer, and they would feel easier. Like they wouldn't, because it wasn't like, I think I was doing painkillers because I was escaping my emotional pain. And one thing that I've learned from the past was that the emotional pain itself, even though that happened years ago, it can only stay alive because I'm still repeating those patterns in my own subconscious. So, for example, let's say that I have a trauma and there's somebody, let's just say, verbally abusing me at some point, right? Well, that trauma might have happened if it was really severe. Let's say it was happening regularly um, when I was a teenager. How is that, like, the past is gone? So how does the trauma stay alive in my being? Well, it stays alive because I'm reenacting some of those patterns to some degree through the same repetition of negative self-talk, through the same needs that I'm ignoring or repressing that maybe I really needed in my childhood or my early teenage years. And so I'm keeping that alive because I'm repeating those same dynamics. And so shifting that awareness, I started going into this, what were all those dynamics? Let me bring them to the conscious surface. What was the relationship with my father like? The relationship to my mother like? What about the relationship was causing me pain? How are those showing up in my being now? And how can I do exactly the opposite? So I'm creating a new program that equilibrates this old set of programs that I derived from those experiences. Does that make sense?
It makes total sense. And it's amazing that for early 20, you're in your early
I think
20s
I
at
was
this
21.
21. For you
Yeah.
to have that level of awareness, being an addict at the same time and figuring this stuff out, it blows my mind. Like when I was 21, when I was 31, I was still not even anywhere close to any of that stuff. So it's definitely a blessing. I love the way you said that you became addicted to personal development. It was like you used one of your, I guess, characteristics that wouldn't be looked at so in a positive light, and you channeled that energy into like helping yourself.
Yeah.
So I guess so from there you started figuring out a lot of different tools and techniques where you start having these awareness about how the mind works and how you can apply it to yourself.
Yes. I think one of the blessings was my whole early childhood. So my I won't go into all the details, but um had like a really tumultuous family life, and there was violence in my household and all that kind of stuff. And both my parents would come to me a lot at a really young age, and I think they just didn't know how to, like, both of them really valued saving face, like, let's not share this with the outside world kind of thing. And so I think it was like, well, who do we go to? Well, our daughter's like this neutral figure. And so I think I was like lucky enough, as crazy as it sounds, to like be really introspective really young. Like, why is this happening? Why
Mm.
are things going, like, manifesting like this? And so I think that set that up in this interesting dynamic, thank goodness. But not everybody has that
Everyone plays a role in the
training,
journey,
or
right?
yeah.
Like, and so everyone else that's listening to this, like all of these things that are maybe look really negative or challenging or not
Can
understand now,
serve in
it's
some
all playing a
form.
role in some form once you start figuring out like how these things work, right?
Yes. And when you're able to look for what the lesson is in an experience, so you can actually capitalize on it. Because
And
I think,
learn from it.
yes. Yeah, there's something called post-traumatic growth, and I get all excited to teach, but I'll start a story. But there's something called post-traumatic growth, and it's this concept that for us to actually grow through our traumas, we have to be able to go back to them, revisit them, and actually take something from them. Like, hey, how can I learn? What can I let go of that's
And a
no
way
longer
that
serving me?
heals.
Exactly, and you give yourself the opportunity by capitalizing on that awareness.
Hmm.
But in order to do that, you first have to go there and ask yourself that set
And
of
most
questions. Something called post-traumatic growth, and it's this concept that for us to actually grow through our traumas, we have to be able to go back to them, revisit them, and actually take something from them. Like, hey, how can I learn? What can I let go of that's
and a
no
way
longer
that
serving me?
heals.
Exactly, and you give yourself the opportunity by capitalizing on that awareness.
Hmm.
But in order to do that, you first have to go there and ask yourself that set
And
of
most people
questions.
don't want to go there because
Yeah,
it's painful.
and because people don't know that they can go there and get something from it.
It's
People
just like I
are
want to forget that
yes,
and I bury it, but you never really forget it.
not at all.
It's
Your
it's just
subconscious,
buried
okay.
deep down there. Yeah.
So your subconscious mind stores every single memory ever, and it's colored with all of the emotion intact from the experience itself. So if I were to say to you, okay, close your eyes and tell me your favorite childhood memory, you would close your eyes and you'd start smiling, and your body language would open, and these things would shift because all the memory and all the emotion is still very much alive. Your subconscious can like consolidate some of that stuff, but it's there. So that we're carrying that. Like if we have unresolved things from 5 years old, from 10 years old, whatever it is, or we're carrying resentments or things against ourselves, grievances towards ourselves, whatever it is, we have to surface those things and reprogram the associations made there in order to heal from that event.
Mhm.
Yeah. I did a master's degree in transpersonal
Transfer
psychology.
psychology. So from what I understand is that then you started working with some clients.
Yeah, so I would say first, I actually didn't think I would work with clients so early. I thought that like this is my healing journey and I'm going to just heal forever. I actually like had a point in my life where like spirituality had a really big role in meditation and these sorts of things. So I had a point in my life where I was like looking up like can I be a female monk and can I live in an ashram? And I was sort of trying to figure those things out for a little bit. But during this whole time, I was like also still trying to learn and put all these pieces together because I was like, I'm having these really profound experiences where I thought I would never heal and this was going to be my life forever. And all of a sudden, like, this stuff is working. So I was like so hungry to learn, like had such a fire, still do. And so I ended up doing after that too. After I finished my grad program, I did like 13 different certifications in like
Everything you
CBT,
can name,
NLP,
yeah.
hypnosis, like anything and everything I could find. And then, yeah, the transition from that is I put a meetup group together to be like, I'm gonna
I
share a
remember.
workshop.
I remember your first workshop.
And
Yeah.
then I was like, oh no, I'm not gonna do it. And I went to cancel it. And I guess this meetup platform launches your event within 72 hours. If you don't cancel it, it just launches it. So all these people had signed up and paid. And I was like, oh no,
The
I'm
universe
not
is just
ready.
like
Yeah.
anchoring you in. So you did the event, you got amazing feedback. When
Yeah.
did you start realizing that the techniques and tools that work so much on you could then work on anyone? Because I think sometimes something works for you, it's like, okay, this worked for me, but in the back of your mind, it's like, okay, it worked for me, that's it. Like I know, like one of my teachers, Wim Hof, when he realized what he was doing, like it was crazy, the kind of like crazy stuff he was doing. But then he was like, no, he knew he could teach it to anybody, and he wanted to just let everyone experience how powerful they were and how they could heal and overcome anything, right? So tell me about that like experience for you when you realized that these new techniques that you sort of figured out or adapted could start helping people. Like maybe some of the first experiences where people shared with you, like, wow, this is
Yeah.
working.
Yeah, great question. So I always knew, like, from a really young age, because I think I felt so empathetic towards my parents. I always knew that I like highly empathize with people and like overcared. I always knew I was going to do something to help people no matter what. But I didn't think that was going to happen yet. So the workshop happened by accident, and then these people asked to do client stuff, and got an office sort of spur of the moment, and all these things, and practice filled, and all those things were happening almost like by themselves, which was really exciting and really amazing. Um, but I think there were two parts to that. So to answer the part where you said, how did you know they could be applied to everybody? I think number one, because I had so many things to heal. So it was like, oh, this worked for addiction, this worked for depression, this worked for anxiety, this worked for all these things that I was struggling with. And so I think that was a huge thing. Like it worked to let go of resentment, like all the subconscious work when I could surface to the conscious level and isolate what the core issues were, what the belief patterns were, what the thought patterns were, what the stored emotional patterns were, and bring them to the surface, I felt I was like, I can change any area of my life. And I was just having like massive, massive breakthroughs on like a really regular basis. And then when I started working with clients, I was getting people from all different walks of life, all different challenges, all different issues. And it was like, oh, these work for everybody. This works for everything. As long as you can isolate what the problem is and then apply this specific set of subconscious reprogramming tools that I developed through all this learning, then anything was feasible, anything was transformable. And I just saw massive results. It was like, I remember starting my practice and like driving home just crying, like, I'm so lucky. Like literally like almost every day for like a little while there. But it was just crazy. It was beautiful to be like, hey, and it also kind of validated my experience. Like, you know, I healed and this like I'm really healed through this experience. And of course, like I'm still a human being and I'll still have fears and things that pop up, but it's like, oh, I can do something with them. And so yeah, to date, there hasn't been a single thing that's been like, this is an issue and this method or this set of methods doesn't apply, which is pretty cool.
So you started helping people, and you started your own practice, and you got really busy.
Yes.
And so that was sort of how the personal development school evolved, I guess, from a YouTube channel where you're sharing content for free. Personal development school is the name of it.
I think it evolved through like conversation with you, honestly. Like I, you know, I was ferociously working because I was like really committed to helping
Ferocious is
people.
an understatement. Like 80 hours a week, and she's like, I got no
Work
time.
with
And
people all the time.
people call me, and I have no time, but I find a way to fit it in. And
Yeah, and because I really wanted to help. I was like, I had this. I think I had almost programmed in myself so deeply, like nobody should feel this alone. And I was like so determined. But it was, to be honest, it was almost like its own limitation. Like I think it was too extreme, and it was almost becoming like this new like polarity instead of being centered and rooted and balanced. And so, I was so afraid of leaving somebody who needed help, I think is really what it boiled down to. So I had to do some work around redeveloping my relationship to that too. And then I, was speaking with you and I posted some YouTube videos and just started to. And honestly, there wasn't. It's funny because as I'm telling the story today, I'm like, everything happened by accident. but
there are no
posted
accidents.
Yeah.
There are no accidents.
But I posted these YouTube videos and was just putting them there for like to share, like educational purposes. I always like love teaching and sharing and so I post them and I started posting them a little bit regularly, and right away people are reaching out off the internet and I know how to, and can we book sessions online? And I'm not like the most tech savvy person. I'm growing in that area. And so I was like, I can't do it. And then I'm like, no, I'm going to figure it out and learn. And so started doing all of that and then was speaking with you, and you were, I think, saying to me, like, you have to figure out a way to structure this better. Like, you're working so much, and like, what are you doing? And so through our conversations, I think we kind of came up with that idea together. Like, let's put this into courses and let's put those courses online and like reach people where you can reach way more people, help way more people, and you're not burning yourself out working 80-hour weeks for the rest of your life because it's not feasible. And basically what the personal development school is, it's like this online platform where people can take the subconscious breakthrough methods that I've developed and we've discussed and apply them to core areas of their life. So I've broken all the courses down into specific buckets. So depression, anxiety, procrastination, self-sabotage, attachment style challenges, fears, phobia, like all these different areas. And the idea is that like, hey, if you're dealing with a specific challenge and you're finding that you're blocked, here's the root cause of the challenge. Here's how to surface it to the conscious level. Here's how to reprogram the patterns around it so you can actually break through. And there's no war. There's no like, oh my gosh, my conscious mind is trying to bulldoze my subconscious and outwill and overpower, because it doesn't work that way. And so we've broken it down to simplify it, to make it like very results oriented, and to make sure that people have like deep levels of awareness and self-understanding so that they're also healing the relationship to themselves. Because I think we can get caught at a wall somewhere or like a block, and we can be like, what's wrong with me? I'm not good enough to break through this, or something's wrong, I'm dysfunctional. And really it's like, no, your subconscious just is sitting in a specific set of programs that it still thinks are there to protect you and save you from something, and we have to isolate what those things are and surface them and then really break through them.
The brain's just trying to do its job.
Oh my gosh, it's your
It's
best
not
friend.
fighting
It's
against
trying to
you. So
help you.
you have to just tell it what to do in the right way, and it'll help you, right?
Absolutely. And even when you look, like, that was a really, you say that and it just hits like home with me because like when I looked and had that realization about addiction, I was like, oh my gosh, addiction might have saved my life in certain cases. Like
Mhm.
if I didn't have something to numb the pain, I'm not sure how I would have managed some of the pain that I was going through at different chapters. And so all of these things your subconscious mind has like a positive intention for and around. And when we can recognize what needs those unhealthy strategies are meeting that your subconscious thinks are working, we can be like, oh, I just need to update my strategies and come up with healthier ways and then make those new programs. And so, yeah, anything is transformable that way.
So for your clients or your the people you've worked with, the people that actually commit to the work, like how effective would you say it is? Like
Like
how much?
crazy
Like
effective.
crazy,
Yeah.
right? Like more effective than anything you've ever seen
So
before.
to date, I don't think and knock on wood, but I don't think I've seen one person who didn't like have massive breakthroughs
The
through
key
the
is
whole
do the work.
experience.
If
Yeah.
you're willing to do the work, there's a good chance that you're gonna learn something about yourself. You're
So
gonna
I
have a
would,
breakthrough,
yeah.
maybe a couple.
So I would say for the courses, because the courses are so like self-worth, like you have to show up. You can't just know the knowledge. It's sort of like that analogy when I was saying at the very beginning of this conversation. Like I learned from the textbook. It wasn't until I saw like how this was specific to my life and applied it that change started to happen. So of course, like there's an application necessity required when you're taking the online courses. But if you do that, and the reason for this is because part of how the subconscious is reprogrammed is through the repetition component. So there has to be like a little bit of commitment, but it can be like 5 to 7 minutes a day of commitment and
That's
things are
it.
changing. Like it's very simple when you break it down. So um, I've seen crazy things. I've seen people who, I mean, addicts go through massive transformations and get sober. Depression, big time. Depression, anxiety. It's so frustrating for me to see people now, and not frustrating because I'm judging the person, but because I feel like it's like so sad to see the circumstance. But I was at one point in my life too on antidepressants and thought, oh, I'm depressed for life and all these different things. And really, it's a set of programs that are there, and it's 0% the person's fault, but it's such a simple thing to transform and to change depression and anxiety both with the right set of tools. And it's so sad to see things where people are on antidepressants for years and years and decades. And so I really help people break through a lot of those limitations. Um, and as a result, people have worked with their psychiatrist or doctor to get off very high levels of antidepressants very many times. And then all sorts of other things, like crazy things, people having eczema and it clears up, and people having these rashes that clear up,
Well,
and people having, there's a lot of
there's a lot of
body
studies that
stuff.
are
Yeah,
showing, and I know Gabor Mate talks a lot about it in some of his books, the relationship between the mind and the body. It's undeniable, some of the science now. So I can
absolutely.
see how, when you help people reprogram their mind, that other things are going to start changing. One of the books or philosophies was about German New Medicine. I won't get into it much now, but they have their own way of, they figured out some stuff similar with the mind-body relation, and they just said, the body is like a map to the mind, the emotional body. So you hurt somewhere or you have some sort of ailment. It's like, hey, you need some attention over here. Like there's a correlation to something that's going on
Absolutely.
internally. So I think that's amazing anecdotal evidence of people healing their emotions and mental state and the body following.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So where do you see this going like in the future? So you're gonna launch the school, and then I know you've talked about like live events, maybe some other things. Like, what are you thinking?
Yeah. So, um, I can't wait to get the first out of 50 courses out. I know that sounds, but just because I think that those target like so many key areas of life. And I want people to be able to enter into the school and open it and be like, oh my gosh, I need answers for this and for this and for this. And those courses are there and the tools are super available. So like that's the first and super exciting chapter. And I want it to reach as many people as possible. I want it to create some kind of impact where people know about it and it's a sort of common thing. And it's like I can go here and I can sit at my home, in my comfy chair at my home, and I can finally understand what's going on inside of me and why.
And I think that's important because I think that there's some people out there that don't want to talk to someone
Absolutely.
about their fears, about their traumas, but at least you're giving them an opportunity to do the work by themselves. Like how many people that come to you and they're just a block, like they say, I don't want to talk about anything. Can I can I heal without telling you anything about me?
I don't let them off the
You don't let them off the
hook.
hook.
No, but there's ways to get, to move at somebody's pace and things like that. But yeah, I mean, the brain is wired to avoid pain. So,
Mm,
there's going to be this natural part of us that goes, oh, the pain, I have to go back to the pain from childhood and see it. But the important thing to note, and I won't overcomplicate it in this conversation, but the important thing to note is it's it's not the trauma of the experience itself, but it's what we made the experience mean about ourselves, what we made the experience mean about other people or our external environment, what needs were unmet that we keep accidentally not meeting in our own lives because it's what we're used to and it's what's familiar, and it's the emotional associations tied into those events. So we don't have to go relive everything either. We can go and understand these key concepts, and we can do that in the present without even going deep into the specific traumatic events, but just acknowledging, hey, on a daily basis, these are the beliefs I have about myself, about the external world, about
mm,
other people, other human beings, and these are the needs unmet in my life, and diving into that with a few other things, and being able to reprogram those things can help us to do it at a level where we don't have to deeply interact with those specific incidents of pain. And that's really what the courses are designed to do, is to help us recognize now what we're carrying from our past without necessarily having to dive moment to moment, memory by memory into it.
awesome. Yeah, I can't wait to take the courses. So is there anything that I haven't asked you that you want to share?
I think I didn't finish answering your question. So
Okay.
you said, what's the future? So
Yeah, the vision. Yeah,
yeah,
future vision.
so definitely like have all those courses and have them just really accessible to anybody who's
Hmm.
challenged or struggling, and then beyond that point, definitely to do live events, to connect with more people. I think a lot of people also still want to talk to somebody and have that option. So I think in the future we're definitely planning to train a whole bunch of facilitators and a team and a network to go out and facilitate and share that information further, and yeah, just touch and reach as many people as possible that are struggling, and not just struggling. I want to make that super clear. It's limitations. It's anything. It's like if you are hitting a glass ceiling in your finances, if you are hitting a glass ceiling in your career, if you're just having a fear or a challenge in your romantic relationship or with your family, like this stuff applies to any specific issue and challenge. And so it's for somebody who wants to just move their life to the next level, or somebody who's going through a deep challenge. It's anything and everything. And I'm still on a daily basis applying different tools to new challenges that pop up for myself, and like, ooh, I want to break through this limitation that I found yesterday, and I'm still constantly evolving because that's our
I
journey.
think it's amazing to see how far you've come with your business. Like you were never really a business person by definition, but your business is super successful.
Thanks.
It seems like you're getting back to balance in your life now after all the
Yeah.
overworking,
Yeah.
almost. Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, so I'm glad you brought that up because it's not just about people who are struggling. Maybe people who are at a plateau, or people who are, maybe you're overworking, you're doing really well financially, but there's areas of your life where you need to break through. So
Absolutely.
I love the fact that you've applied some of those methods to everything, and that's why I'm super excited, because I know there's a lot of areas in my life that I can still upgrade and
Will
optimize.
always, forever.
Always, right?
Like, yeah.
Journey of learning is unending,
Yeah, but
right?
it gets so much better and easier. Like it's not like, oh, I have to get through this or else. It's like, ooh, I found something and I can transform it, or I can grow and evolve. And I definitely think that's part of why we're all here right now.
So, what's the best advice you have for someone who's struggling right now and is just listening and really desperate for help? Like, what would you say to them?
Okay, so if somebody's really struggling, the first thing that is probably most important to do is be gentle to yourself. Like, we do this thing as human beings sometimes where we have a problem, and then because we're socialized in the system of like punishment and reward, and it's all judgment based, we have a problem and then we turn around and we judge ourselves from having the problem. And the really tough part about that is that by judging ourselves for a problem, we get stuck in the story of our problem and how we're not good enough or something's wrong with us or whatever it is. And what that does is it acts as a buffer that prevents us from identifying the root causes of why we have the problem in the first place. So let's say my problem is anger, for example, okay? And let's say I become this really angry person. if I'm struggling with anger and then I'm like, "Oh, what's wrong with you? You're so angry. You've got issues. You've got problems." I don't get to see why I'm angry in the first place and identify what the root causes are. And what we see with people who are struggling with anger is usually they're poor at setting boundaries. They feel unseen, unheard, and powerless. And so, what does anger do from the subconscious mind? Well, anger is a subconscious strategy to get all those needs met in one fell swoop, right? It's like I get angry, I get loud, I get seen, I get heard. I
Mm.
take my power back finally because I'm like empowering myself, and I set a boundary through my anger. And so, if we're too busy judging ourselves for the surface story of what's going on and what the challenges that we're facing, we prevent ourselves from identifying the root cause, why we're doing what we're doing, and how to actually transform it. And so I think what I would say is to take the judgment away, to bring some compassion and understanding towards yourself, and then to deeply ask, like, why? And you can look at this as if there's something going on in my life, what we know through research is that it's a subconscious strategy to get a specific need met. So, whatever you're doing that you don't like or that you're upset about, ask yourself, what need is this meeting? And then, how can I get that need met in some kind of healthier form? And I think that's a really good place to start because it brings that level of deep introspection, deep awareness, and it takes all that unnecessary self judgment out. And remember, like those thoughts of self judgment or pain are producing emotional responses, which are producing neurochemical responses. And then sometimes contribute to a chemical imbalance if that's something that you're caught in. So it's really important to correct that internal dialogue as well because it has a response on the rest of the body and we want to be able to transform that and then get to the roots.
Amazing. Okay, so we went through a lot so far. Is there anything else that you think that I should have asked you that I haven't about personal development school, about anything in particular you want to share?
I mean, all I really that comes to mind is like gratitude. Like
Mm.
if there's something I would want to share, it's just gratitude that people are engaging in this, that people are like taking accountability for themselves and their healing process. Like it's been a short journey online so far, but it's been so beautiful. Like just to see so many people doing this work on themselves and like just taking to it so much. And I get like incredible emails and all these different things from people who are like showing up for themselves and like thank you to everybody doing that because it like touches my heart so deeply and
I,
it's so
I-
beautiful.
I'm gonna make a wager that the name Thais is gonna become one of the most popular baby names in the next 5 to 10 years. After you get on Oprah, Ellen, and Dr. Oz, okay, I'm gonna put that wager down there too. So if you guys are listening, or if anyone that knows them, just put a word in to get Thais on the show because you're gonna change a lot of lives. Yes, and
Thank
I
you.
have so much gratitude for you and all the work that you're doing. So does everyone that watches your videos and the people you work with one on one. So thank you, and I really look forward to seeing how much impact this is going to make in the world. I'm super excited to be a part of this. So thank you for trusting in me to help you, achieve what we're going to achieve.
And thank you
Yeah.
to
No
you
problem.
for helping make all this possible. Like your knowledge and expertise and everything you've done to bring this together is just incredible.
Mm,
And I couldn't thank you enough
Thank you.
either.
And I
So
also want to thank Kwao, our
our
videographer,
amazing
and
videographer.
creative. One of our creative. We have some really creative people on the team. Your sister
Yes.
Shoreland and
My sister's a
Matt,
little
who's been helping with
powerhouse.
the social media. So just want to thank all the whole team because it's really important to have an amazing team when you're working on a project like this, right? Just bringing that
Absolutely.
energy through. So
And we're
a lot of
so
gratitude.
blessed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so the podcast is called Elemental Awakening. So like, what does the word awakening mean to you? And was there a point in your life where you felt like this shift in your awareness of self? Like, you already told us a bit about your story, but was there a specific point where you talked a bit about being spiritual? Was there an event? So yeah, what does it mean to you? And then was there a moment that you can identify where you felt like you had some sort of awakening?
Yes. Um, so there was like a really hard moment of my life where sort of a very deep thing to start off with, but there was a really tough moment in my life where I was at like a rock bottom, and I knew a little bit about the mind and understood a little bit about the mind. I had been in school for psychology, all these different things, and I was really like looking for tools and for understanding for how to create change. And it was this awareness that, as we were sort of saying, it was this awareness that like the way I was speaking to myself in my internal dialogue was creating so much of my pain and was preventing me from solving any deeper issue. And, Eckhart Tolle, I know, says it, which I think is the most beautiful way of saying it, is an awakening is the separation of thought from awareness. And because I had this, like, I'm beating myself up and that's recontributing to my pain, it was this, my own version of that. So it was this
Mm.
ability to like witness my mind and see the patterns that it was running and then observe it from that space and then actually create change.
How important is that experience for learning, like experiential learning? Is it like, because even in my own experience, like I read so many books about all these different things, but like the first time I did ayahuasca, I was like, oh my God, I understand from the experience. Or the first time I did an ice bath, it's like, okay, I know what this feels like now. You know, like how important was that like experience?
Extremely
Made
important.
all the difference,
Yeah.
right?
So I would say that it's not a necessity to create change. It's not a necessity to reprogram your subconscious and to do all these different things, because you can have somebody who facilitates that experience or a video or something that you learn from. But to have that experience with yourself and to be able to observe your internal dialogue in real time is really profound, because it's, in my opinion, it's sort of like making the conscious mind aware of its subconscious contents.
Mm, amazing. So you mentioned Eki when you're reading his book. What was the most impactful book that you've ever read, or that comes to mind that you really change your perspective on life? Is there one?
Yeah, there's a few. But the first one that comes to mind was, which is crazy because it's, the book itself is like, I got my hands on the book. I think the universe was coming for me. I got my hands on the book before I was in the headspace to read it. So it was The Mastery of Love by Don Miguel Ruiz.
Love that book.
And it's like I wanted to read it and I wanted to understand, but I was still addicted and I was not sober and I wasn't in the mind frame to, like, I read pages and put it away for a while. I read pages, put it away. And then when I really started changing and transforming, I was able to fully read it and like finish the book. And that was the first book that was like a part of that initial fire of awakening. And it was like, oh my goodness, like this is crazy. So that was really profound. I would have to say the most powerful book I've ever read is A Thousand Names for Joy by Byron Katie.
I haven't read that. Yeah.
Oh, wow. It really like solidified separating thought from awareness for me and really solidified like having that space. And I love Byron Katie's work to this day. She's still my favorite like spiritual teacher. And then I would say I do A Course in Miracles on a daily basis and have been for a couple years now. And I do the lessons, so I do like the workbook for 15 minutes in the morning and 15 minutes in the evening, and that's just like always profoundly insightful. And I love, what I love about it is that it like gives you these daily reminders of like forgiveness, gentleness, kindness, like seeing people through the lens of love, like all these things that I think are just so missing from our society right now. And there are these reminders to come back to that space in yourself that I think is who we all truly are.
And I think that's the key to any of this work. It's integrating it into your life,
Yes.
right? It's like experience again. It's like, how do you
Yes.
integrate? And sometimes you need like some sort of guide, like saying today's focus on gratitude.
Yes.
And another good friend of mine, Joey Lundgren, who I hope to get on this show, is like, he's so I would love for you guys to have a conversation. I can't wait till you guys meet. Have I introduced you guys yet?
I think I met him. I don't think I met him. I think I saw him
He
at
played
the Ideal
guitar. Yeah,
Changes and
yeah,
he
that's
like
right.
performed.
Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah.
But I didn't know who he was then and stuff. So I didn't, and I don't think I got, there were so many people. I don't think I got to connect with him
Okay,
personally.
cool. So one thing I'm into a big time is psychedelics for healing and exploration of the mind.
Yeah.
So any experience?
With psychedelics? No,
No,
nothing.
nothing.
Nothing
Okay.
yet.
A
Yeah.
curiosity.
Yeah. I mean, I think initially I associated, because I come from addiction, I was like, never going to that
Hmm.
part of my life again. And I think initially there was fear. And then I've been around so many people in the past few years that are just like so profoundly impacted by ayahuasca or like just having these really spiritual experiences through this. And the one theme or thread that sort of ties them all in is that it returns people to a place of love. They feel unconditional love. They feel,
Hmm.
and in my opinion, that's like what we're all trying to get back to. And so the fact that that speeds up the process of receiving that, knowing it, being open to it, I'm like, wow, it's profoundly inspiring.
Wow. So what do you think about this whole new industry of like MDMA assisted psychotherapy and stuff like that? Like, have you done any research on that? And do you think like your work could one day be associated with like an integration tool for people that are doing psychedelics? Because I think from what I know, I think it would be an amazing sort of add-on, because after people do the psychedelics, it feels like the subconscious mind is like pulled right back and it gives them a window to now make change. And some people can make that change based on the inspiration they get through the plant medicine or psychedelics. But some people really need like a roadmap saying, here, now we have this window. So like, can you see like a link
Yeah, I
between it?
mean, so I didn't even know, to be honest, that MDMA was considered a psychedelic. I didn't know that.
Yeah, like
Oh, I don't know if it is or not, but
technically by like I guess standard terms, it's not very visual, but I think
mm,
it gets put
it's like
into,
the classification.
yeah, it depends who
Interesting.
you talk to. Like,
So, I mean, I had times where I did a lot of MDMA in my life. And as crazy as this is, um, during those times, what I would do is I was with my partner at the time who I was living with, and we would do MDMA and talk through our issues.
talk
Honestly,
therapy
I'm not even kidding.
comes automatic
It
to
was
you.
like we weren't good.
You were
I
doing
was
like
too
MDMA
wounded,
assisted
yeah,
psychotherapy before it
without
was even a
meaning.
thing. It
Yeah.
was just-
Like I didn't. It wasn't. I was so afraid. I felt so like vulnerable and not good to express a need or to speak up about things, and we were in this point of our relationship where neither of us were good communicators. We were both in trauma and wounding and all kinds of stuff. And we would do this and we would sit down and talk for like 6 hours about all of this stuff. And it was like profoundly connecting and healing. And sometimes I wonder, like, was that almost like a precursor or something that like helped bump me over the edge of healing um, my addiction to opiates? And it sort of like, it would make sense if that played a role. So,
Interesting.
so do I believe in MDMA assisted psychotherapy? Absolutely. Do I think that you need to have that in order to change? Definitely not. But I
I
am
think that's
like a
really important.
huge, yeah, and I am a huge um, supporter of like anything that makes people connect to themselves, heal, and come from a more loving space and return to that loving space within them. So,
Yeah, I think that's really important that if you do choose to use it, that it's a tool. It's not the answer. You
yes,
have the answer within you.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
Amazing. Okay, what else? What other questions do I have for Thais? Oh, so you're an athlete and you still play sports competitively. How important do you think it is to have a physical sort of outlet for yourself when it comes to mental health? You know, because a lot of things we hold in the body. Do you think there's a correlation between, you know, when people exercise more, they can feel better mentally, clearer from your own
It's so
experience?
interesting. So, like, my personal answer would be like, I need to run around because I'm like a very energetic person and I have a lot of energy. So, for me, it's always been profoundly useful. I was also exercising a lot during times when I was totally addicted and I was playing soccer in university and still doing painkillers all the time. And so, there was this. Um, so do I think that that's like the answer? No, for sure not. But that's such. I think we have to have really good habits in our life because habits impact our neurochemistry, impact our subconscious, impact the relationship we have to ourselves. But what's really cool and interesting to me is whether you have exercise or not, because I do think there are people who can just do a little bit of light yoga or walk and just do very like simple exercises and be in a really deep state of balance as long as they're really in mastery of their mind and their thinking. Um, but I see people like yourself doing these amazing things with breath work and with cold showers and exposing yourself to the cold. And I think that like we can enter in from any point as long as we have a roadmap and an intention. So if we're entering in through the body and cleaning up our health and emotional well-being and our emotional eating habits or things like that, of course that has an impact on your emotional well-being. If we're taking care of whether we're in our sympathetic or parasympathetic nervous system because of work techniques, I mean, wow, that has a profound
Do
impact.
you
So
think?
there's any entry point,
Do you
mind, body,
Yeah,
spirit.
do you think when people, going back to what you said before, they exercise, they're subconsciously saying, I want to take care of myself. Like, I want to love myself. It's like a way of
Exercise is
showing self
neutral,
love.
it's the intention behind it.
It depends how you're using
So
it,
if you're exercising because you're anorexic and you're trying to burn off the 300 calories you ate today, then it's self-abuse.
or because you hate your body and you just want
Yes.
to, like,
Yes. But if you are exercising from that intention, that's
so
what
there's no
really,
real correlation based on just the exercise alone. It depends what's going on behind the hood, like internally.
that's
You
what I
think so?
believe. Yes.
So do you see, like, with your own clients that you work with one on one, any correlation, like people that exercise
To be
versus people that
quiet.
don't exercise, or you don't
I
notice
honestly don't
anything?
touch this with people too much. Like,
Okay.
I'm a huge proponent of healthy habits, but like, one of the first things I do with people is like, here's a healthy habits checklist. Here are some reprogramming tools you need. Like, I give people daily things through that repetition feature to get them back to that point. And I suggest like exercise, activity, things like that. But I really leave that up to like, is this something you want to be doing? Because I think intention
Interesting.
matters the
Yeah, I
most.
think for me, like when I started eating healthy, that was like my first sort of like
That was your
started
entry
like
point.
things started changing, like the way I thought, the way I felt, for sure.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see like. You know, if people are eating like a bunch of junk food and like really bad eating habits, like does that matter? Because if they just change their internal,
I th- well,
would that follow?
I
Like,
believe that there's like a spillover effect into everything. So, like, when you take care of your mind or you take care of your body or your activity or exercise, whatever it is, like it's the intention to take care of yourself. It's the intention behind it. And that becomes its own programming, which then spills through repetition plus emotion, which is one of the features of how the subconscious is reprogrammed. It spills into everything. And I do believe in like vibration, like I really do. And so if you're raising your vibration through one entry point, like the mind or the body or the spirit, because you get really connected to your relationship with God or the universe or your own spirit, like any of those is an entry point. And because that then raises your vibration, of course, other things are going to start to change as a result of that.
cool. That totally makes sense. A couple more questions. What is there any like apps or gadgets or like technology that you use right now that you feel is really helping with either productivity or with your life on a daily basis? Like, is there anything that comes to mind? I know you're not the most tech savvy person, but anything that you've used as a tool to help you?
To be honest, no,
No.
no,
Okay.
no apps or anything. I write everything down like religiously. So I use like tools that are a part of like the practice and things that I do. But in terms of like, let's say a daily habit, like if you're saying an app is a tool, in terms of like a daily habit, like I swear by meditation. I meditate twice a day, every day. I don't think I like hardly ever skip a day. It's just a natural part of my life. And I do reprogramming rituals every day and A Course in Miracles. So I really believe in like
So we're
habits
gonna
and
make an app.
tools.
We're gonna make a personal development school app for
Okay.
that.
That's what we're going to do.
Okay. What's something that you don't currently know that you really want to learn?
Okay. So I feel like there's so many things.
I know. It's a question I want to ask you for a while.
Okay. So, um, there's so many different like components of things that I'm really interested in. I've really been interested for a long time in like John DeMartini's breakthrough experience work. I've learned similar techniques and tools from people associated with that, so I'm really interested in that. And something called the trait collapse. I'm really interested in a little bit more about internal family systems. So I took an introductory course a little while ago, and it was really cool and eye-opening. But I think that I've heard so many people say really powerful things.
I'll introduce you to someone.
Yeah,
A
I'm
friend of
interested
mine's
in
really into it.
expanding that. I mean, I have things like on a daily basis. I can't think of so many things right now, but I'm constantly writing things
It's
down.
all
Like
personal development
learn this.
related. Yeah.
It is, for the most part, because I'm just so passionate about that area. But and it's like deeply in my personality needs structure, so it's like its own really intense program. But I'm also really interested in learning like the Wim Hof method
Okay.
and breath work. I think
Done.
through exposure to you and all of
Okay.
your amazing experiences.
We'll do it. Yeah. We're gonna get an
Yeah.
ice bath. Well, Kwau's already experienced it. Kwau, how was your first ice bath experience?
It was amazing. I was shivering the entire time, but it was really nice.
Kwau was a native of Mexico,
Yeah.
Mexico, yes.
which never drops below 100 degrees Celsius. So seeing him get an ice bath was a lot of fun.
Now I
pretty
take
cool, eh?
a cold shower every single day.
Cold shower every day. See, I could
really
tell.
good.
I could tell.
Good.
You look more clear. um, that's Kwau. He's our videographer. I love the guy. He does amazing work. So I guess last question. Someone that you'd like to meet that you don't know personally.
I don't know personally. I have my first answer. I honestly would love to meet Byron Katie
Byron Katie.
because she's been such a powerful like teacher in my experience.
I'm gonna write her an email tomorrow.
Hey, her. I mean, they're all definitely like people in the personal development field, people whose work I've really admired over the years. Um, I would also say Don Miguel Ruiz. I got an opportunity to interview his son a couple of years ago. And let me think of a third person. Michael Singer, big Michael Singer fan.
Oh,
You've
me
read
too.
one of his
Oh
books,
my
yeah.
God. Yeah. If anyone's listening, read The Surrender Experiment. One of my
Yeah.
favorite books. Both of them, even The Untethered
Untethered
Soul.
Soul,
Yeah,
yeah.
so good. Thank
Yeah,
you
they're
for
both
the
beautiful.
reminder. Okay, so you guys want to find Thais, personaldevelopmentschool.com, at Thais Gibson on Instagram, Personal Development School on Instagram, YouTube channel, follow her. Amazing stuff. She's got a lot of free content on YouTube. More to come in the near
Yes.
future. So stay tuned, guys. Send her some love on social media. And if any questions, ask her on social media and she'll be sure to answer. So like, subscribe, follow this channel here, follow her stuff. Thank you so much for spending time here today with
Thank
me
you
and
so much
looking
for
forward
having
to
me.
everything we're going to do.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Me too.
And thanks, guys, to the team here.